We won't be happy.
Yeah, okay.
And no, you would be happy.
Okay, all right. Cool. Can you hear okay?
So far we haven't seen any specific questions.
Yes,
All right, I started the recording.
Towards like damages with the
It's a little bit of a hack right now. It's in Squad and there's some people in there. So we might pick up some chatter. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So, Lewis, how have you been?
Clients. We already want to book it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's probably the best way. All right. Cool. How have you been, Lewis?
Sorry, sir?
How have you been?
European. We don't mind. It's so
Actually,
weird.
I
Because,
discussed
my parents are from
our last
Australia. I'm
conversation
mixed denomination. I'm born in Australia.
a week
But
ago.
it's a habit we
We
have
have
noticed staying here for
discussed
such a long
earlier
time.
that we have
And also
developed
through
kind of our
with the
thinking,
new
like
mixes of different people coming in to Indonesia.
knowing how to make
But I know that we can't stop
that the
and
two
we don't want to.
one way
Wait,
But
I'm
the
gonna have
host
to, wait, I'm gonna have to
needs
change
to be
something.
aware
This won't
of
work. Give me a
communication,
second here.
what they say. And one more thing, I just want to say before we go, because we do have to go to the shops to buy gas cylinders and
Okay,
things like
it's a
this.
little bit too much chatter here.
Really
Let me,
important.
let me try
I
to
don't
switch
believe
this
that
up.
our house would be suitable for toddlers, children, because we
I
don't have a fence
I heard
Okay,
voice
around the
that
swimming pool. However, we were
Okay,
thinking,
let me
if it was a
let me
child,
try
like
this.
a
Okay,
baby
so I'm
baby,
trying a different
we can get
different
feeder and
space.
things like this.
Let's see if it's a little bit easier to hear.
We need to be
Lewis, can you hear me?
mindful that it's not really
yes,
suitable
but
for
I
children.
heard the other voice.
I
That's
know, yeah, it's a little bit hard right now because
see what you
I'm trying to
guys think.
record this for some of the
If you
people who
think
aren't
when
here,
we see you
but
again,
there's not a lot of recording
First, my
machines
dear,
at the moment,
we
and
can get
I generally can't record from my machine
here to the table.
unless.
Buy
Let me try this actually. Let me see if I could actually record from my machine.
You can hire.
And
Okay.
you can hire, which happens in other villas,
Generally,
Hire chairs.
a
A cot. It's
That-
like all that kind of stuff.
no, but just a gate. I don't know where my clients have hired before when they've stayed in Seminyak and many different places here on Bali. You can hire a
Waiting.
gate to
Okay.
protect the pool.
let's see.
Yeah, but ours is too late.
I think the
Just see how we go.
Yeah, I think maybe let the content guys come take a photo.
Okay, I got it under control. I think this should work. Okay, so let's go ahead and begin. Tell me, you were just saying earlier about like what happened while I was away. Go ahead and let's get a summary of that. Welcome, Biddy.
Energetically,
Hi, sir.
All right. So, Lewis, tell me, give me an update on the situation with revenue management while I was in Jogja.
A younger set of audience than
actually about the
anything with stairs.
about
Younger
my
people.
Parents, yeah,
sorry,
younger people.
I wanted to say that I
Want stairs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they won't.
got four. But
Yeah, yeah.
wait,
They're gonna love it.
have less booking than
The last thing I only
first week.
is the contract. Have I sent you the contract yet?
I think at first, and then
Oh,
We did it. No. Someone
in the
else.
previous week, in the third week, I
Okay,
do
let
No, because we weren't ready to.
Let me know. Yeah, I think I have sent you a
not the
copy
third
of
week.
it
This is
before.
like making the
So-
listing.
No, it wasn't like it
For
wasn't.
example, like
It
group
was
of
Eddie.
That's it.
Yeah. Okay.
the cancellation
Yes.
I don't know if you need to
but
probably
I haven't get the result after I changed it. I haven't
There
get
it is.
back because I'm still waiting for
The revenue projections.
and the
Might
other
need to be adjusted.
we have
Yeah, I
our
would
last
see if the
discussion,
revenue projections were-
Well, when you come over,
Okay.
to
We can
do you need a hard copy?
check the
Can we sign?
Oh, we do everything online now. So
I
And the sign?
it on my
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
Yes,
Next
well,
time
maybe you
this
do that.
yes, I'll come over and then we can get that signed.
That'll be great. Come
And
for
then you
it.
just see whatever's.
Okay.
done.
Let me go over to Vidi. Vidi, were you able to hear much of what Lewis just said?
Actually, there is a lot of
Oh,
sounds in the
together?
background,
Okay,
so
that's nice.
it's not really clear. But
Okay.
I heard
I
about
shan't take up too much
the
of
new
your time.
I need So let's just
I
do
didn't
it.
pick up where's the kitchen?
I got the same actually. Like there was quite a bit of
Technically,
chatter in the background. Oh wow, there's like conversations happening everywhere right now today.
Yeah.
There's like a team. There's a team working. Hey, Tris, what's up?
I can't believe you said
Okay,
that.
so there's a market
Yeah.
building deal over
The
there.
big
There's
CEO of,
training over there. I'm trying to find a more quiet place.
accounting firm,
Okay, so
accounting,
I heard something about Squad 4 in this, and I heard something about your OKRs and about cancellation policy. So let's do this first. Let's just take a look at Squad 4 and see how we're doing overall. So I'll share my screen, and we'll go into it. Okay, so taking a look at let's see, Squad 4. Let's go ahead and see what the updates are. So let's see. Okay. Oh, right. Okay, I see what Lilith is talking about. Okay, so we're pretty much looking at a trend of lower bookings and a lower median. Yes, I agree with you. Okay, so if you were to, let's say, predict, Lilith, what do you think has been the leading cause of lower number of bookings in Squad 4?
Mm, lower number of bookings, but for I don't actually know, but it is related to the company issues about the coronavirus. I think.
Okay.
The general number of the guests coming here may be decreasing. It's maybe
Okay, that's actually a pretty interesting hypothesis. Let's test that. Okay, over to Vidi. Vidi, if let's say the guest arrivals are decreasing due to like health concerns or fear about coronavirus, how will we be able to verify if that's actually the case or not?
So that's the thing. I also discussed regarding the threat of coronavirus, maybe the fear with the other members in the group base. I remember you saying that. I think in the beginning of, I think at the end of January, I think I remember you saying that we don't expect to have a lot of impact. We don't expect to be impacted by this issue because of like most of our guests do not come from China.
Yep.
But in the back of my mind, I thought to myself like, even though the guests do not come from China, but I think there are a lot of fears regarding traveling abroad, like traveling internationally in general, of airports and all stuff like that. So I think it might have an effect.
Very good. All right.
Very good. All right.
I also kind of like coincidentally I have a friend and also like he's kind of working in a like 3-star hotel or something like that. He said that his hotel kind of dropped in number of guests because of these concerns, even though the number of the audiences do not come from China.
Okay. Fantastic.
But then how can we confirm from the data itself, from the internal data? I think we can see our booking pace. It's sometimes like by the end of by February, it's quite low, but it may also be caused by seasonality. Maybe we can also compare it to the February of last year, perhaps.
Very good.
Very good. Okay.
All right.
All right. So that's a good idea.
Vidi, so what we can do is
Yes, to summarize Vidi's point, I did mention that we don't have too much,
let's say
direct impact, first order impact of coronavirus because
we don't
have that many Chinese guests.
But
We're getting second order type impact, which is
now that
coronavirus is a threat,
that should slow down
global travel and global tendency to travel.
And as
your friend in the hotel industry has seen, they're seeing some lower figures in charge. Okay, so Vidi plans to take a look at what we were doing last year. So let's go ahead and try to find out the same week last year. We currently don't have a feature that can actually look at. Oh wait, can it? We don't have. That's annoying. Okay, we don't have something that
look at
exactly the same time. But let's try our best
and let's
look at the last year.
Try to see
what the last year looked like.
Not the last
30 years,
but
just last year.
Sir.
Sir, you can select it, sir. I think days.
Okay. Yes, Lilith.
Uh, Actually, your voice is echoing.
My voice is echoing. It's probably because I have two microphones on right now. And I will eliminate one. Okay, how about now?
Yeah, it's good.
Better, yeah? Okay, yeah, I had two microphones on, so they're probably interfering with each other. Okay, so what I'll do is this. Let's check Vinny's hypothesis. Because it's a little bit tough to check, but let's do this. Let's go ahead and copy this. This is the, wait, hold on a second. I want to see days. Oh no, it's frozen. Okay, let's go with the last 30 days, right? That's kind of like the span that coronavirus has been in play. Okay, since about late January, we've heard about coronavirus. So that's what the booking trend looks like this year, right? Let's see what the booking trend looked like same time last year. Oops. Okay, this will pull too much data. All right, we don't need last 30 years. We just need last 2 years. Okay. And let's see if we can isolate the squad 4. Okay, we kind of isolate that to squad 4, and we can sort of see what it was over here, right? Sorry, I can't find a better way to zoom in. Maybe we can ask for a custom date solution here, so we can actually maybe there is a custom date. Nope, there's no custom date. Wait, maybe there is. Okay, nope. Sorry. So to answer your question, Vinny, it is a little bit difficult, I would say, to see what to see what the impact is, because if we look at, let's say, last year looked like this, right? Sometime in January to February, that first part over here. Oh wait, bingo! I know how to do this. Wait, I think I know how to do this. Come on, keep only. Let me see if I can do a keep only. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Come on. Oh, it doesn't do it.
Wait.
Okay, I'm being frustrated. Sometimes you can select the keep only feature, and that would isolate the set of data, but it does not seem like it's going to let me do that. Okay, all right. So all we can see really, Vidi, is that it sort of staggers along, and then sometime around March, it picked up last year. All right, so it sort of fluctuated. And I would say that, yeah, towards the end of February, it was definitely better than January. You can see kind of like where the gradient on that goes. And this year, if we take a look at the corresponding gradient, it does not seem so positive. It seems mostly like a negative gradient, actually. So good. We can take the year on year, and based on a very rough just estimation, see that the 10C tends to be actually a declining trend as we march further along in the year. So it could be, yes, it could be coronavirus. But there's another way that we can actually take a look and understand how we've done. Does anybody have any other ideas on how can we detect impact? Let's say, okay, Davidia again.
I think like if we can figure out the date of the coronavirus outbreak, and if we see if there is a huge decline gradient. So the point of impact.
Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at that. Here, let's actually just look for this, sir. Let's take a look at the last, coronavirus hasn't been with us for more than 2 months, right? Okay, so let's see, this is 2 months worth of data in terms of booking pace. Is there a point where you see that bookings are decreasing?
February 2, I think.
Right, so it does go down, but then it goes back up again, and then it kind of actually, it does even better actually, Vidi. If you look at, let's say, the immediate week after February 2, the low is around 86, and the high is up to 96, and that's actually even better than the previous weeks. So it's actually kind of opposite what we might expect. You'd expect that as time progressed along, there would be more impact due to coronavirus. But it seems like, coronavirus was announced sometime in January, and it seems like it did better. And so even if we look at, let's say, the overall data, we don't see a dip, right, in the interval of time where coronavirus has happened. If we see like an overall dip, then we can say, okay, something might have caused that. But from what I'm seeing, it's like this February set of booking pace seems to be doing much better than the January booking pace. There are far fewer days where we get lows like 63 bookings, and the highs are significantly higher. They're around 95 rather than around like 90, 87, 81. Okay? So we don't see a downward trend. But there's actually something else. There's something else that might give us a clue whether or not the virus has affected booking pace. Does anybody want to make another guess about that?
Cancellation?
Yes, cancellations. Very good. So cancellations is the other side that we can't see from booking pace. And on that side, we see indeed there is a significant increase in not just the number, but also the values of cancellations. Let's go over and take a look. So on the cancellations, all right, sometime between December and January, there was far more cancellations. In fact, it tripled almost. It doubled. It doubled from 19,000 to 45, and it still really hasn't gotten better. Looking at this month in February, we're probably going to exceed even the amount that we saw in January. So not great in terms of cancellations and such. So very much so. The impact seems to be there. Not necessarily in stopping people from booking, but definitely in people in canceling, which affects our overall revenue. Here's another way. What can we look at in terms of the booking pace in order to understand, let's say, the impact of coronavirus? Let's go to Vidi. Any other ideas?
In terms of booking pace, you can also observe the number of bookings made for this month as opposed to the following months.
Very good, sir. So, in fact, what we see is actually somewhat interesting. So, we're kind of looking at the proportion of out-of-month bookings related to in-month bookings. So, if we see that there's a lot of, we actually have to start from February, right? But we see that there's actually very little cover here. The cover meaning the blue part. So the thicker the blue part is, I would say that indicates that they're less affected by coronavirus. It means that people are planning to travel in March, April, May, June, July, August, right? All the way to the end of the year. But if you have a higher proportion of orange than blue, that would indicate that, yes, you're getting bookings, but fewer people are actually planning on traveling. And that would support that hypothesis. Okay, let's take a look at that. So has that been true? Do we see actually a decline in the proportion of blue versus orange? Let's go to Lilith. What do you think? Lilith, you're muted.
Sorry, sir. I see that on February's, starting from February 16,
Yep.
I see the orange color is decreasing. So it means like people that are booking it in last minute is decreasing also. And it might reflect that fewer people come in here to travel, and not last minute travel, but I mean less people planning to travel here on February.
Okay, all right, interesting analysis. Let's go to Vidi. Vidi, what can you take out of this? Do you see that there's a, do you see the impact of coronavirus versus the proportion of blue to orange travel?
Yeah, of course. Like I kind of followed the news regarding coronavirus too, and there was this period along early February where the death rates of coronavirus increased, but at the towards the end of the month, the news said that the cure has been found and there are more people cured from coronavirus as opposed to dying, and we can see from the blue parts it's also increasing in a sense.
Okay, interesting. Very good. All right. So yes, I would like to actually bring this up. Lewis, check this out. So if you see, like, let's say on February 3rd, that's probably the worst day, right? Remember, people making last minute bookings, that means people booking in February for February, they might have already started their trip, right? So it's not like they are planning, it's like they've already started, and it's already too late for them to turn back. So if you're getting orange bookings, it doesn't necessarily mean that people are not afraid of travel. It could just mean that they've already begun their trip or they're already here and they just need to finish their trip. So that wouldn't necessarily indicate intent. The only part that indicates intent due to, let's say, fear of coronavirus is the blue part. So on February 3rd, I would say that could be, let's say, where the world felt the most amount of fear, right, to travel, because you have some people who are just like booking within February, but you have very few people who are planning to make advanced bookings. But you can see the very next day, the ratio was much better. It looked like 1/3 of people were planning to still travel in the future, and maybe 2/3 were traveling in the month. And then the next day, it sort of thinned down a little bit. But as of yesterday, it seems actually very positive, right? We have almost more than half of people are planning trips outside the current month. So that's kind of a good sign in a way. That's a sign that things are okay. And on February 16th, it's even, right? There's just as many people who are planning to travel as people who are making more last minute plans. Okay, so what I think this could indicate is this, ladies and gentlemen. If we have a booking pace that's all orange, that's a pretty bad sign. That means that the fear of travel, that like nobody really wants to make any long-term plans to travel is with us. But if we see that there's still a lot of blue, then I think we're okay. We're in the clear, okay? So that would be one of the fastest ways that I would estimate if there's impact to travel due to coronavirus or something like that. Okay, so here's the question though. Between February 4th and February 12th, there was a pretty strong booking pace, but somehow during February 13th to February 22nd, it seemed like the booking pace was far lower. So if this is, let's say, last week didn't do so good as the week before. You can clearly see that in terms of the highs and the lows. The week before, the high was up to 100 and the lows around 80. And then last week, the high was 80 and the lows went all the way down to 65. So not sure why that's happening. Not sure why we got, like, let's say a spike here yesterday on Sunday. But it's just something to keep note of week-to-week performance. Okay, let's take a look. Let's go back to the idea of all hands. At all hands, what would have been, let's say, the biggest red flag if we were revenue managers and we're like, oh, what? Hey, look, we need to fix the revenue. Where would be, let's say, the highest focus spot to look at in terms of fixing the revenue for February? Let's go to Lilith.
On February, you mean, sir, or?
Like if we would, we're probably going to hit our February targets, right? So that's within range. But if we wanted to, like, let's say, as revenue managers, prioritize action and attack or address the biggest opportunity or the biggest, let's say, threat to our revenue, where should we go? Which particular area should we actually look at the revenue and try to fix things?
Area. Maybe Canggu.
Okay. All right. Lilith says Canggu. All right, let's go to Vidi. Vidi, what do you think?
Actually, I'm not really familiar with the places. I only took care of Nusa Penida.
Okay, no worries. All right, Lilith said Canggu, but I would actually say there's an easier way. In fact, there's a way that we can actually address the problem faster. And instead of thinking about it as an area, like a geographical area, think of it as a profile list, right? So a profile is far easier to manage than an area because, we have a mix of different areas and different profiles. So then you might need to patrol around everything. So then we just need to take a look at this. We need to take a look at which profile essentially has the biggest amount of decline that has the highest amount of revenue. So generally, whenever I start a revenue control, I always start from the one that has the most revenue, because fixing that fixes, like the most of your problems. So we saw this happen, right? There's a 35% decline on the Jing and Wayana profile. So that's where there's the most amount of revenue potential, and that's where we have the greatest amount of disparity from February to January. So that seems like an important part. Now, if we go to, let's say, a smaller profile, let's say, I don't know, Crystal Wayana, something, right? Then we see that, well, okay, this one isn't as urgent as the previous one because the overall value isn't as large, and the overall decline is also smaller. We're talking about a 31% decline rather than the 35% decline. Leading on, let's take a look at adventure accommodation. Adventure accommodation had, let's see, it's in fact not an issue at all. Adventure had, it has 7,000, which is the lowest of all three profiles we've discussed so far, right? And it has only a 10% drop. So then essentially you try to look for the area that has, let's say, the most amount of value and the most amount of decline. So we can see that Jing and Wayana, they are the two ones that are the most urgent and need to fix. So then the next thing I would do is I would try to figure out, like, okay, who's in charge of that, right? Who's actually looking after those particular profiles in a few dimensions? Who's looking after that on the revenue side? Who's looking after that on, let's say, the reservation side? So once we have that, then we can take a look and see, let's see, who is supposed to be looking after that. Now, the funny thing is, I think the new account holders, there's new account holders for those two profiles. All right, you hear, okay, so I think that the people who were handling it before have been switched over and there's somebody new handling it. So all you gotta do is just move over to the all hands and see who is managing it. So let's kind of mosey on over to the profile management. And there we have. Okay, it's Luki and Rian, and it's Nadine and Rian, actually, for these two profiles. All right, so then I would start basically asking some questions. And then I believe Alvin handles the revenue management on both profiles. All right, what's the first question that we would need to ask the list?
The first questions.
Yeah, well, what's the first question that, let's say, we should ask about what's going on here?
In which area? What is the most? I think directly about what is the potential property in that profile.
Okay, what are the potential properties? Okay, interesting. We know that essentially all the properties have potential, though, right? Because previously they were, getting, let's say, 63,000, right? Now, we don't expect it to be the same because we've seen similar dips across all different types of profiles. We don't want the dip to be so much. We don't want the dip to be like 38%. That's a little bit out of control. We need the dip to be, a little bit more regulated. So we need to start asking questions, right, to check off the checklist. So what are some questions we can ask, Pity?
For me, well, may I ask, like, the new account holder, have they started only since February, or even since January they have started?
I believe they started in February because
February, right? So
yeah.
Possibly, like, let's say before switching holders, they will communicate, right?
Yeah.
Like on what to do, because like you have to pass on the knowledge.
Yeah.
But then there might be changes in how they perform things. So first, I would like to ask, like, what are the different things that you tried on this account? I think.
Okay. All right. What sort of different things have they tried on the account? Perhaps we're having some differences in the management style, right? Okay. Remember, we want to make this as simple as possible. So we want to reduce the question set. In essence, there's only a few things that could be happening that are essentially lowering the performance of the profile. What could those things be? Let's go over to Lilith. What would you sort of detect as the reasons why a profile is underperforming compared to the previous month or compared to the previous account holder? Oh, Mike.
Maybe the review.
Okay, maybe the reviews. Okay, great. What else could it be?
Profile. Uh, the revenue petrol is actually. I mean, how frequent the people who manage it doing revenue management.
Okay, really good. Right. Remember, as revenue managers, we really only have one control, or let's say two controls: pricing and timing. Right. So that's what we can do. So there could be a revenue control issue, which means that the timing and the pricing isn't happening the way it should, and that's leading to lost revenue opportunities. But also think a little bit more on what the HAR team is doing. They're also converting inquiries and processing bookings and requests and stuff like that, right? And also the reviews is part of their field of responsibilities. So you could actually be most likely you're dealing with a person maybe who isn't converting inquiries as efficiently as before, right? Maybe you're dealing with somebody who is not as skilled on taking reservations as the person before. So you definitely want to kind of drill down there and try to find out what could be the reason. In this particular case, it's actually pretty simple. All you have to do is just delegate to Alvin because that's why we have this structure, right? So Alvin, I think, needs to know right off the bat that, hey, look, for some reason, the two people that are on your profile, whatever, they're experiencing a greater amount of loss this month than anybody else. And maybe you can go in and take a look and understand why that's happening, right? Manage those people so that the conversion scores are better and whatever, check the reviews, make sure those parts are okay. And make sure that the revenue control is happening. So this is a method of diagnosis. We need to be able to identify when there is a revenue risk and then be able to identify why that risk might have come into place. In this particular case, I think it could be that we have very new people who are handling these accounts, right? So both Luki and Nadine have less than 3 months, and perhaps this type of account management needs to improve. I actually did see a case today, which was funny. This was on Nadine's side, where effectively a bad review was. Let me show you. This could actually have some impact. Sorry to shame Nadine here, but it does have some impact if you consider it. Okay, where are we here? Chill. All right, here it is. So things like this affect booking desirability, and they should be detected when you're seen. Let me show you what happened. Okay, waiting for this to load. And in the meantime, okay. Okay, all right. So this is something that could actually impact the booking base and impact, let's say, the conversion rate of this property. So we have a negative review. We have a negative review, and essentially the person who wrote about it said that there were some things promised in the listing that weren't actually fulfilled, and there was some compensation that was not actually done in the right way either. So then our response to it was something that was a little bit not actually addressing the points, and so this could affect performance on the Jing and Wayana profile, right? So something like that indicates to maybe a guess that there's carelessness on the side of the host. So once again, I think part of revenue management is all together the idea of reducing risk and then being able to identify where the risk comes from and then addressing the key reason why that was there. Okay, was that pretty good to kind of look at it from a diagnostic point of view? To be able to like take a look at the macro and then drill it down to something that's actually down to this. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about was a revenue projection that Nunli has requested. So Nunli's sitting behind me right now. And yes, welcome in. Okay, so she's requested a projection for a property, but in the meantime, let me see. This will take a little bit longer to load because I am recording, and recordings are slow when there is a, let's see, this happening at the same time. So I'm going to call upon our Trello. Oh, wait, I have another thing that I can share. This one's pretty interesting. All right. Here, let me bring you guys into, while we wait for the other thing to load, which will take a while. This is a real life discussion that has happened between a partner and a market building team. So we are here to discuss about how this will work. And oh, I would love to get Lilith back in because this is something that she would feel. All right, welcome back, Lilith. Okay, so what I want to show you guys is about process. So back in the early days, I used to do everything at Bukit Vista myself. I was the market builder, I was the content person, I was the revenue manager, I was the host. So there's a continuity in understanding how A led to B, led to C, led to D, led to E, right? So that's one person, you get that full context. But we work in different chapters now, so it's important to kind of look around and see what's coming down the line and be able to anticipate how this might affect her work, right? So let's take a look at this. This is a letter from Serkan, and he's saying that he will sign the agreement after he sees the projection and talk about tax. He wants to be informed instantly on any price movement. We will not have interference, but we like the transparency and discuss the case. And he's guessing that Tokit will offer those automatic notifications, and he'd like to have rights to ownership in the Airbnb page after the contract ends, regardless of the duration of the contract. And he wants to have rights to ownership of the photos and the videos. Okay, all right, so let's go and discuss that. So let's go over to Vidi. What do your business instincts tell you about this type of conversation?
He or she will not renew the contract after a year.
Okay, all right, interesting, very interesting. Why do you say that, Vidi?
Well, it might be just for security measures, but I don't know. But I don't know. Something is tingling. Like it just seems like, yeah. I don't have like it. It just rings that maybe after a year, they will try to handle it on their own.
Yeah, very good.
I don't know why, but
that's really sharp, actually. Wait, we should put you in front of more business decisions. All right, let's go to Lilith. Lilith, what do you think?
Maybe kind of assuring what will be like in the future. Like, is there the steps that fit with what they want?
Okay, all right. But we got to go back to about this, Lilith. This goes back to negotiation and persuasion, right? So we got to be able to tell when somebody's trying to do something that is, I would say, yeah, like Vinny, you had a pretty good instinct on this, right? You detected there's something wrong. Lilith, in almost all cases that I've seen where somebody asks for the content, there is intent to operate independently, right? There is definitely intent. That's kind of like saying, hey, look, that's almost like saying this. You can sing at my venue for a year, but afterwards I will own the copyright to your music, right? And so you go, wait, that has nothing to do with that, right? So if you own the copyright to my music, then you can produce my music without me. So I won't ever be able to get paid if I come to your venue again. So we got to be careful about that. This, I would say, definitely no to point number 3, right? Anything that we produce is our, it's our property. Airbnb, when they take photographs of your place, the content belongs to them. Even if you pay them to take pictures of your place, the content still belongs to that. That's just the way it is, because that's essentially our capital. That's our investment. That's what we are essentially putting in. And so unless you're going to pay for the creation of the site and all the things, and then you want to go away with it, that's fine. It's kind of like if somebody's built this business for you, then it doesn't cost just the cost of the materials for the business, right? It costs the risks, it costs the journey, it costs all that part. So definitely a no on number 3. That one is a telltale sign somebody's up to maybe take your intellectual property. Which goes into number 2, right? Exactly. Vidi, you caught on. Anybody who wants to take ownership of this is asking you to build them a business and then walk away once the business has succeeded. So definitely say no to anything like that, because that is essentially I think that's a setup. That's a trick, right? So it's like, build this business for me, and then after it's done, I'll walk away with it and I get to keep it. So nothing like this. This is a partnership, right? We work on the marketing side, we keep that. You work on the operations and you own that, and we work together on this, and that's the way it is. Facebook, if you want to leave Facebook, you got to essentially lose all your likes, you lose your whole network, you lose all that. You can't really say, hey, look, if I quit Facebook, I want to bring all this over to my own site and carry on with it. It doesn't work that way. Okay, and then that brings us to the first part. So why would somebody need information on all the pricing movements? Let's go to Vidi.
To gain the intuition, basically.
Exactly, right. So there's no other better reason than that. Lilith, what do you think? Why would somebody need instant updates on the pricing information?
To detect the strategy.
Right. Essentially, if they've seen you do it a lot, it's essentially that this person is setting up to essentially, yes, like you said, V, to essentially intellectually rob us. All 3 parts of it are set up as a perfect plan for that. You see this kind of stuff, I would say, hey, look, we've got to be careful. We can't accept this. This has all kinds of evil stuff written all over it. If you do see somebody ask for, why would you need to know this, right? It's like our secret sauce. It's like everything we do is this, and they're asking basically to rob you and have your consent. So just say, no, this is not what we'll do. We will do it back according to the other way. Otherwise, all the work is pretty much in vain. Okay? All right. So I want you guys to also see this and look at it and detect about it. Vidi, you seem to have pretty good instinct on this. Does your family do business?
Yeah, my family do business.
Okay, all right. Have you seen this type of stuff before?
Yes. Yeah. Unfortunately, yes. Yeah.
So you know bad fish when you see it, right? Okay, all right. Good instinct though. Wow, that's pretty sharp. It took me a few years to actually understand this too myself. Every owner who came with that type of offer always ended up as a person we would have problems with, because they fundamentally see it as they want you to build it and then they want to own it. So that's not good for business for our side. We are a subscription-based business. We want to be relevant for many, many years ago. Okay, all right. So then all this talk and all this stuff is just essentially more whatever. They're not going to do it unless they know it, that they're going to get this. So okay, so they back down and price reporting, and then they say hopefully sailing for a long time partnership. You can kind of decide what you want on that, but I think the intentions has been shown on the first card. If they've already shown that intention, then all I would do at this point is to lock them down. All I would do at this point is no, 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 no. You've actually expressed intention that you want to copy my intellectual property. You've expressed intention that you want to perhaps steal my intellectual property, and I will actually double down and reinforce that that won't be the case, because right now I'm having trust issues believing that you're working for actually a long-term relationship, and a long-term relationship should have this. Remember, the most stable relationships are the ones that have pretty much good alignment. Good alignment means win-win, lose-lose, and that's it. There should be no win-lose scenarios. There should be no case where partner wins, you lose, we win, partner loses, anything like that, that creates dishonesty. That creates a lack of alignment. It should be, all right, look, you work with us and you do well and we do well, and that's fine. You leave, you lose, you don't get our marketing services and you don't get the benefit of what we're doing, but also we lose. We don't make anything if you leave either. So that's a stable situation. Having the situation that Mr. Whatever said before, that's a win-lose situation. That's a situation where they can possibly win by taking everything with them, and we get nothing after we've set up everything. So, okay, all right, just want to kind of cover that and be knowledgeable about that. Yeah. So better not to do these deals than to do these deals and then go like, oops, bad partnership. Save yourself a lot of agony. Okay, so that's something I wanted to show you in terms of how business deals come, and just be wary of that. So you know, smell bullshit when you see it. Okay, the next part is related to this. This is Villa Sarkan. So this was actually an interesting project because last time we did it, there was some incomplete data. Now we got a little bit better data, I guess, but it's still kind of hard to do. So we did it. I don't think Vidi, Lilith, were you here for that projection when we did the projection for Villa Sarkan? Okay, let me bring you up to date on this one. So this one was really tough. This one was really difficult because this is the one where we don't have a lot of information. In fact, it's very incomplete. So we're supposed to do a projection for this property. It's not a homestay, it's a villa. Can't be a villa homestay. But we have some limitations, and it's important to know what we know. It's also important to know what we don't know. So in cases where we know things, then it's easy to make a projection. But in cases where we don't know, then we just have to kind of guess. So what's the issue here? We have the same method. We have a Canggu seasonal model. So we have, we're trying to look at the seasonality of the area and determine how this villa would look like based on that seasonality. But it's really a restricted model because we don't have a full portfolio of fully controlled properties. It's a mix. There are some properties that have full control. There's some properties that we don't have full control. And the other limitation is we don't have 12 months of continuous data. And actually, we don't have full control on most of the similar villa properties. Most of the villas we did in the beginning, we did silly rules, like we agreed to things like that guy just suggested, and we lost control of the properties and we lost control of the calendar. So even though, let's say we have revenue charts, but they're polluted because the owner has slipped in their own bookings. So we can't really predict on the pricing. So the best way we can do is we can try to devise a seasonal graph based on what we do have, and we just base it on two conditions, right? We just base it on, let's take a look at September. That was the lowest revenue month, and we base it on either a 2,000 or a 3,000 for September. Now you can do this for the current month. You can do this for whatever your month, but that's kind of it. So we did we looked at Canggu seasonality for the entire marketplace, and for the entire marketplace of villas, these are the numbers that we got. So for all the villas in Canggu in January, we got 9,500, and all the way to December with 14.4. So that was the pot of all the revenue in Canggu for villas. And then based on that, we created a ratio, and based on that, we gave 3 models, right? Or 4 models. We gave a model based on a $2,000 September revenue. We gave a model on a 2,250 September revenue, all the way up to 3,000. And then we just picked the most conservative one to be the representative, right? So we just took a look at the seasonality and we plugged in a number for that. Now that's not a great model. That's actually a pretty terrible model. In fact, there was no similar property. There was no anything else. It's just based on a guess. But I think in a case of where we don't have anything similar, where we don't have a full picture, a guess is better than nothing. And that's just what it is, until somebody smarter comes along and maybe is able to do more with the resources that we have. Okay? So that was essentially the process for creating the Villa Sakar model. Do you guys have any comments on that? To Lilith first.
Hmm, actually, I still try to understand. Maybe Fidi first.
Okay, let's go to Vinny. Vinny, do you have any comments on this?
Well, coincidentally, I was also asked to do RM patrol for a new property, which was Losari. It started on the end of January, and that's also one of the concern because for Losari we do not have an actual mirror property that we can project our revenue from. And I saw the calculator. We have several calculators, and so far the calculator has been the projection has the real revenue has strayed really far off from the projection because
Okay.
of the because we do not. I think there are a lot of things that didn't fall into considerations, but and again, my actual work is actually to uh, develop this model, but I'm still grasping through the information from the conventional methods, and I'll start working on the model, I think this week or next week, because
Fantastic.
and again for the I think that the part where we do not have continuous data, I think there is this one point regarding we do not have continuous data in the projection just now.
Right here?
Yes, there is this point on the top part of the document where we do not have continuous data.
Right.
Um, I want to clarify what does it mean that we do not have 12 months of continuous data.
Oh, thank you very much. That's a good call. So it means that if we take a look at, let's say, if we want to look at, let's say, a seasonality trend, then we have to look at, we have to look at clean data. So we have to look at what is 12 months of revenue data look like from a similar property under the similar conditions. So for Canggu Villa, if I may, I'll show you kind of like what it looks like. If you look at, let's say, the Canggu Villa, this is Canggu. Okay, and we're gonna look at, let's say, the last 3 years. Okay, all right. So this is what the seasonality graph looks like. But we need to isolate it too. We're talking about villas, so we need to talk villas to villas. Okay. All right. So this is the villa. This is the Canggu Villa input data. But the problem here is this. I'll give you what it actually looks like. So you can take a look at one of the villas, Lola One. And it doesn't, it has 12 months of data, but it's very it makes no sense, right? Like, why is it so low on these months and such and such? It's not a good comparison property because we don't have full control over it. And sometimes the owner puts in their own bookings, right? So we don't have continuous data. We don't have a data that represents, let's say, the condition of being continuously under our management. Some properties we just don't have 12 months worth of data, like Villa, let's say Vista, right? So this property, we have just a few months. We have since January. Actually, we don't have that much data at all. So the problem with, let's say, looking at the data of Canggu's Villa is that it's like some properties have been there for 6 months that we have control over. Some property have been in there for 12 months that we don't have control over. So it's sort of a mix of everything. It's kind of like the food at the end of a buffet, like yesterday, right? Sort of like all the scraps and everything have been thrown into the trash can, and you sort of have a little bit of incompleteness from everything. So that is not that helpful for understanding what, let's say, the regional seasonality should look like. Ideally, to understand the regional seasonality, you should have 12 months of data based on a property that's identical or similar to the property that we're offering, but also under the same control, under full revenue management control, where the owner does not necessarily interfere and put in their own bookings and such. Yeah. So that's what we mean by continuous data.
Right. Okay, understood. Because I'm facing a similar obstacle, or what do you call it? Friction. I think in Bukit Vista we call it friction.
Yeah, sure.
Similar friction, but this time it's for the prediction of prices for each day, right?
Mhm.
And if we don't have, like in this case, we don't have the data for a particular month, but especially for each day, we don't have bookings for every day, right?
Right. We actually, to answer that question, Vidhi, predicting the price of a future date is a little bit easier than predicting the price of, let's say, what a future month might be. The the price distribution curve can help you get some insights on what a date should be booked for. So if you look, say, I don't know, you look at, let's say, Canggu, and you take a look at, let's say, a guest house type property in Canggu, then and then you can kind of see where the bands are, and you can also see on which particular dates there's no bookings at all. So for those particular days, there might not even be a defined date. This is probably, you can use the regression line if you want from whatever you select. This is probably the best way to indicate, like, what it could be. Remember, at the end of the day, the right price is whatever price stimulates a booking. Because once you stimulate a booking, then you have put yourself into a path that stimulates another booking. So all you have to do is sort of like, you need to do something to get yourself onto a booking pace on a cadence that works, and then keep it within, let's say, the boundaries of what is necessary to keep that booking pace at whatever sustainable pace it needs to be. That's always been the guideline I use for pricing correctly. Okay, back to you, Vinny.
Right. But I think that's the thing with a neural network, because if you can see here the projection made by Tableau,
Mhm.
it's the projection is based on the lowest error, like it's a quadratic line. It's a quadratic
Yes.
line, right? Basically,
Yeah.
it's
R square values. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, the thing is, when we try to make a turn, we want to create a neural network model which fits kind of like not in the conventional manner, in the sense that it can kind of like curves around,
Ah.
right?
Yeah.
And to do that, it has to be time series, in the sense that we'd have to have a continuous data, because let's say we have 4 or 5 inputs, then in the model, right? Then the 5 inputs must be there, and the 5 inputs usually in a time series data represents uh, 5 days prior to the prediction date, for example.
Okay.
And sometimes the date that data that kind of data is not available, so it's like an empty slot.
Oh, why would that feature not be available?
Because if we look at the database, that's why this is initially, right, why it took me quite long to settle with the model, because in the beginning, I was given the bookings table, the date from the database, and we have the list of bookings that was successful. Basically, we have the prices, right? Um, but then we figure out that there are holes in between the listings, between the
Mhm.
dates, and that's why currently I'm making an API, a wrapper API for Python from Talkit, so that I can collect all the dates basically. And for example, this correlates to your the talk we had before regarding probability, because for example, in each date we have a price, right? And it might be sold, or it might not be sold,
Yes.
and we can represent it in a sense to 0 or 1.
Yes.
And if we reverse the price as the output, let's say we have an output and all of this input, we reverse the price, we will get a value between 0 to 1 as a
Yes.
probability.
Yes.
And that's what I thought. That's what I'm thinking to do right now. But
That's
yes,
perfect, actually. Yeah. I
but
mean, that would be great. That would actually be easy to communicate as well. Like,
yes, yes,
if
yes,
you have the price, you have an 80% probability of getting a sale on that date. If you sell at this price, so you can almost start creating packages of
yes.
risk,
You can
right?
kind of like reverse the value, kind of. I think at least that's the concept basically of what I'm trying to do right now.
Oh, that would be amazing. That would be incredible. If we could assign, let's say, yes, at this price you have this probability of a sale. At this price you have this probability of a sale, and then it becomes actually really simple I think, to manage the risk. It just says you just need to put in a risk appetite, right?
Yes, and something like that basically.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
that's the concept of it. But for now, from the conventional, I'm also managing 4 properties using
Okay.
conventional method, and uh, I think one of the most difficult part in managing property is not the numbers itself, but um, especially in Nusa Penida, maybe Lilis can relate. The owners sometimes they do not believe in the data, kind of like that.
I agree. That is the hardest layer to get through, right? Um, so we kind of need to work on both ends on that one, Vidi. So part of it is the community management must be able to deliver a story, a narrative that makes sense so that we have the space to work with what we need to work with. You're right. A lot of people who, let's say, did not have college backgrounds, or even people with college backgrounds, might not be able to correlate how this equals that, right? So the promise, I think, is always very simple. It's what is the projection, and are we actually hitting that projection with what we're doing? And if we are, then let us keep on doing what we're doing. If we're not, then let's have a conversation about something else, right? So in terms of that, work with the teams to get the narrative right. And you're right. The hard part is getting the narrative over to the owners. Okay, I'm going to need to stop the session for now. We got a promotion review coming in, but I think we covered a few really good topics today. We covered about how to identify global risk in the company and isolate it down to the profile, and then isolate it down to the person responsible, and then isolate it down to essentially the micro, like what is it particular about like a particular listing that might be affecting the global revenue of a company, which is pretty powerful, I think. Second part is we analyze a little bit on the business part, identifying if a business deal sounds right or not, and being able to determine that. And the third is to look at a projection and understand if this projection actually, without the best, cleanest data, how do we deal with that? How do we work with that? All right. This is what makes revenue management revenue management. It is a little bit like neural nets. You're not getting the most perfect data. You're getting whatever you get, and then you sort of create a better mental image to create that, just like the way humans learn. Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Vidi. Thank you very much, Lilis. We're going to stop now, and we're going to start the next episode here, which is going to be Trish's promotion review. Okay, guys. See ya, and welcome in. Okay.